Hey guys, what's up? It's munclesonkey. So during this video, I'm going to be sharing some damage dealing DPS tips with some of you guys. Many of you may already know the information that I'm going to be saying, some of you may not. However, hopefully there's going to be something new to learn for everyone that watches this video, whether you're a fairly experienced PVMer or whether you're just a casual slayer and would like to know some tips to really improve your damage and make your tasks go faster. So first of all, what I wanted to start off with in damage is, I think, probably the biggest mistake that most people make when it comes to doing DPS, and that is making sure that you're getting the biggest damage boost possible on top of your weapons. So obviously the first good thing that you can do to increase your damage is just to upgrade your weapons, whether this is melee, range, or mage. You can always upgrade your weapons until you have the level 90 weapons, which are Drygores, Seismics, and the Ascension crossbows. And once you have that done, though, what more can you do to increase your damage? Well, there's three good ways to increase it that are all fairly easy to do. The first one is just to wear power armor. Now, there are a few types of power armor in the game, most notably the God Wars dungeon armors, the Bandos, Armadillo, and Subjugation, and then you have the Nex armors and the level 90 fully degradable armors, which will also boost your damage quite significantly. Now, we all know that these armors are good, but one thing that kind of shocked me is exactly how good they really are and how much they're going to boost your stats. So first of all, I wanted just to compare these to Drygores unoverloaded. The formula gets pretty complicated when you compare it to various types of armor and weapons, and also when your stats are boosted from such stuff like prayers and potions. So what I'm just going to compare it to is Drygores unoverloaded at 99 strength. So when you have dual Drygores, you're going to do a base of 1450 damage for all your ability attacks, and if you're wearing Bandos, for example, it'll add 130 damage to that, so that comes out to an 8.9% bonus to your damage. And if you're wearing, for example, full Torva, that's going to be 150 bonus damage, which is 10.3% bonus, which is really huge if you think about it. 9 or even 10% bonus over time can really add up, and 9 or 10% more XP, for example, if you're killing monsters, is going to add up a ton in the long run and really speed up your Slayer tasks or your PVMing. The next thing I want to talk about is overloads. Overloads, in addition to just boosting your stats, also give a +8 damage for every single level that is boosted. This is something that I personally didn't know, and I found very interesting that how much overloads really helped, because I knew they were always good to use, but 162 damage if you're using Drygores without taking into account any power armor. That's an 11% damage bonus in addition to boosting your accuracy, which makes overloads an absolute must for any style of PVM. Finally, I want to talk about prayers. Now, the Piety prayer only requires level 70, and it gives you an 8% boost to damage and accuracy, which is really nice. And then when you have 95 prayer, you can use the Turmoil course, which gives you 10% damage and 10% accuracy bonus, which is amazing, as well as draining your enemy's stats, making the enemy weaker, which is extremely useful for PVMing, lowering the boss's ability to hit on you and your chance to hit on it. Now, the next thing that's going to really help out when it comes to damage is your adrenaline bar. As tempting as it may be to just hang back and use Revolution all day long and let the game use abilities for you, the better abilities are going to be at your higher adrenaline levels, such as the Threshold and the Ultimate abilities that can really input a ton of damage. As you can see on the screen here, using the Rapid Fire completely destroys this Legion. You should see basic abilities as your gateway to unlock higher damage dealing abilities in your Ultimates and Thresholds. I personally really see Threshold abilities as the meat and potatoes of your damage dealing, as you need 50% adrenaline to use them, and they only use up 15% of your adrenaline, which leaves you plenty of adrenaline left to get it back up and use more thresholds. Again, the ultimates, some of them are nice. The only ones I would really recommend using for the most part, other than in certain PVM situations, is going to be the damage over time dealing ones, such as Berserk for melee or Metamorphosis for mage, and there's a few that you unlock during the World Wakes as well. Now, keeping your adrenaline high can really be nice, especially after you use one of those damage dealing abilities over time, and you want to get up your thresholds again so you can use both of them in conjunction to deal massive damage. And there's a few items in the game that can really help out with this. First of all, my favorite ring in the entire game, the Ring of Vigor, and the one that I consider to be the best. Every time you use an ultimate ability, it lets you retain 10% adrenaline, so you can get back up to your thresholds a little bit faster and really deal an enormous amount of damage using the two of them together. The next is the Supreme Invigorate Aura. You can get this off the Solomon store. I've never used it personally, but when it's fully upgraded, it does the same thing as the Ring of Vigor, and it retains slightly less adrenaline per ultimate used at lower levels. But if you have the loyalty points to spend on it, and in conjunction with the Ring of Vigor, you can retain 20% adrenaline per ultimate use, which lets you get back up to those thresholds really quickly. And the final thing that you can use to retain or gain some adrenaline is the adrenaline potion, which boosts 25% of your adrenaline, but you can only use it once every 2 minutes, so it's not something you can use every time you use your berserk, or whether you're using mage or range, whatever your damage over time dealing ability happens to be. But especially in boss situations where you might not have the most time to really use abilities, this can help you get up to your threshold abilities while you're under the effects of berserk very, very quickly, and can be extremely handy. The final good items that you can wear to increase your damage are going to be scrimshaws and auras. I think these are probably the most overlooked of all the damage helping items in the game. First of all, with auras, the two that I really recommend damage wise that you should probably get first, especially if you're a PVMer and like to use mage and range during your PVM, are the runic accuracy and sharpshooter auras, which boost your damage up to 10% when you have the fully upgraded versions. I have both, use them all the time, they're great. Another aura that can kind of help out magic damage wise is dark magic. This aura is really only good if used against monsters with high HP though. When used, it has a chance to do some extra damage, and it depends on what your magic damage boost is, but it deals around 5k or so damage, but it takes quite a while to activate, so it's really only good against monsters with really high HP such as Virago or KK. Not so great for Slayers, so I'd really only recommend to get that one if you're PVMing a lot, but if you are, it's definitely worth it. And the final and probably the most overlooked items of all are the scrimshaws. The only two scrimshaws that I really recommend damage wise are the scrimshaw of the elements. This is probably the best one. The tradable version gives 5% magic damage, and the untradable version gives about 7% extra magic damage. And there's also the Scrimshaw of Cruelty, which does the same thing, but just for range instead of magic. The one that I wouldn't really recommend getting Scrimshaw-wise for damage is the Scrimshaw of Strength, which boosts your melee damage, but it's only about 2.5%, which isn't really worth the cost, or the Ancient Bones, because you can use them on Scrimshaws of the Elements, which are much, much better. The final thing that we'll be going over is ability bars. It's always good to have a good ability rotation to do good damage, and you want to make sure you have the abilities that are going to give you the most potential damage to do. So if you're unsure of exactly what ability bar you should be using, I would recommend just to copy mine. I show off my melee, range, and mage ability bars. I just spent a lot of time this morning putting them all together, making sure they're exactly perfect and nothing was left out, and I'll be doing a full video kind of going over ability bars tomorrow and kind of my reasoning behind all of these and why you want to use these specific abilities and which ones you want to prioritize. But that's going to be about all for this video, so just remember, with your abilities, make sure you're using your thresholds and ultimate damage dealing abilities as much as possible, and stay away from Revolution as much as you can, because it's not very good, because you don't get those high damage dealing abilities in there. But that's about all for this video. Thanks for watching, stay tuned for future videos, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Farewell.